Let's look a little further into this with Dr. Michael Slobodchikov, political science lecturer at Troy University, Alabama, author too of Strategic Cooperation, Russia's Relationship with the Former Soviet States. He's on the webcam now. Good to speak to you again. Just first of all, the wording that President Putin used is interesting, tells us something in itself, doesn't it?
It certainly does. And the fact that he has recognized Crimea as a sovereign state tells us a lot about the relations that Russia will have with Crimea.
What does it tell us?
Well, it tells us basically that Russia's not prepared to annex it immediately. It tells us that Russia's waiting to see what happens in the future. And it tells us that what it's doing is it's waiting to see what happens in eastern Ukraine and what happens with what's happening with the provisional government in Ukraine.
Do you think it's likely that Russia does want to will move further into Ukraine?
I don't think it wants to. It may feel that it's forced to, depending on the situation with Western Ukraine. Western Ukraine has called up its reservists, and there are a lot of people who were reserves in Eastern Ukraine who are refusing this order. If Ukraine sends its military forces into eastern Ukraine to try and quell the protests currently happening, then Russia may feel that it has to send in troops to help those ethnic Russians in eastern Ukraine.
So do you think the sanctions from the United States and from Europe will make any difference? Do you think the West actually wants to do anything more, even if Russia moves further east?
I think that the West would want to prevent Russia from moving further east. However, I believe that the West realizes that there's not much it can do. It is trying to send a signal by imposing sanctions, but these sanctions won't hurt Russia tremendously. And so Russia's making a big statement here by saying that they really want to maintain their hegemony in the region, and they really want to maintain their power and don't want European influence in their own backyard.
And in a sense, when Russia says it is worried that neo-Nazis are now in positions of power in Kiev, it has a point, doesn't it?
It does have a point. There is a radical element in the protest movement that has now gained a certain degree of power. And Russia doesn't view this as being a legitimate government in Ukraine. It views that the agreement signed between President Yanukovych and the protesters on February 21st as being the legitimate agreement, and that Yanukovych was removed from power illegally.
Dr. Slobodchikov, thank you very much.
Thank you.